if you look at what Denver did versus what the Utah Jazz and the LA Lakers did not do, I think life got much more difficult for the or for everybody but the Denver Nuggets. Aaron Gordon brings an athleticism. Aaron Gordon brings a guy who can shoot, who can dunk. But you know what he really does well? He defends, and he can defend three positions. And I think that's what Denver knew they had to improve on. So, Jake, if I ask you, how much did the scales tip in the Western Conference yesterday at the deadline? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that Denver got way better yesterday. And now the conversation goes from, okay, we just got to focus on stopping Jokic, and then that should slow down Murray, to now having to defend three full guys and maybe even a fourth in Michael Porter Jr.
Exactly.
And I think that I always talk about on the show about, when we talk about teams and how they're built and how they're constructed and what winning looks like for them, I always come right back to the same point of adding Aaron Gordon and, to an extension, JaVale, gives you more ways to beat a defense. And that is what the NBA is about. When NBA teams are watching game tape and they're trying to figure out, okay, what is the weakness of the Utah Jazz's defense, let's say. They're going to pick that apart, and they're going to try to utilize the talent that they have to exploit that. So when you add to the talent you have, it makes your life a lot easier. And so I can already imagine a place where Aaron Gordon is on the weak side wing. Nikola Jokic is standing at the strong side elbow, and Murray's bringing the ball up. They're going to get the switch so that Bogdanovich is on Aaron Gordon, and Aaron Gordon is going to take him down to the block. I can see that already. I think that if you're the Jazz, if you're the Lakers, if you're the Clippers, you're sitting here saying, okay, this team hasn't done it yet. They haven't been to the finals. They've been a postseason team. They haven't quite established themselves, but now they're a real danger. Right now, the Nuggets are better than the Lakers are. Right now, with the injuries the Lakers have, with everything going on, the Nuggets are a better team. When I look at the Jazz, I think the Nuggets are a better team right now. I think they're more talented. I think they've got more to offer. I think they have more ability to get high percentage looks, which should allow them to win the battle in the paint. And I just think overall, and we're going to get to what the Jazz did here in a minute, but I'm left a little bit disappointed with what the Jazz did based on what the Nuggets did. It is not a good comparison. It's not a good ratio. The Nuggets definitely won yesterday. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and the thing that really makes me nervous is I don't think many teams around the Western Conference got better. I think yesterday was a great day for the East. We're going to talk about the Miami Heat in a minute, but as I look up and down the gamut of deals that were done, I don't think there's any question that the Denver Nuggets won the Western Conference yesterday. As far as trade deadline moves, of course, all this has to play out on the floor. But when you add JaVale McGee to that roster, that may seem like a nothing move. His energy and his ability to block shots and change the flow of a game off the bench as your seventh or eighth guy is significant. The fall off now from Nikola Jokic to JaVale McGee or that second center is not nearly as much. And you know what the real truth is, if we're really looking at why these moves were made, who did Aaron Gordon replace? Well, it wasn't Gary Harris and R.J. Hampton. It was Jeremy Grant. And it was the Nuggets realizing they needed to kind of fill that gap that was unfilled since his departure to Detroit. And I think that really is what they addressed yesterday. Aaron Gordon is not the same player Grant is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. He is more of a two-way player. He is more of an effective finisher at the rim. He's a guy like, again, not to belabor your point, but if you look at the matchup between Aaron Gordon and the Utah Jazz, if you're a Jazz fan, I'm asking you directly, who would you put on this Jazz roster? Who would you put to defend Aaron Gordon? Because I don't think there's an obvious answer. It's probably going to be Royce O'Neal, but Aaron Gordon is bigger, thicker, wider, more physical than Royce is. That's not a great matchup. It should be Bojan Bogdanovich. It's not going to be because he can't stand in front of me. I think my crossover might drop Bojan defensively. Okay, I'm a jerk. But the point is, why are you laughing? I have a crossover. I can play, bruh. Anyway, the point is, that's my biggest question, Jake. And I understand that The Nuggets certainly got better yesterday.
Yeah.
But if I said to you specifically, what does Aaron Gordon do to the Jazz defensively? I don't know that there's a specific answer for that.
Well, my answer just would be that I think that if you let's pretend that they still don't have Aaron Gordon, and let's go back to the bubble last year. What did we see? We saw a lot of switching. We saw a lot of times when they were playing, when they wanted Jokic to play one-on-one with Rudy and kind of pull him away from the rim. The Nuggets got a lot of offensive rebounds late in that series, and the reason that side of the game matters without Aaron Gordon is because if you add Aaron Gordon to that mix and you're still doing that, all the Aaron Gordon addition is doing in these matchups is pushing the Jazz's defensive depth chart down. It's pushing it down. It's stretching it out. It's making it so your best defender on the squad in terms of perimeter defense in Royce O'Neal, now you have to make a choice. Now signing Aaron Gordon makes the Jazz make a choice. Okay, so your best defender in Royce O'Neal, who are you going to put him on? You going to put him on Aaron Gordon? You going to put him on Jamal Murray? You going to put him on Michael Porter Jr.? Well, no. Michael Porter Jr. is kind of a secondary player, so he's out of the equation. But the choice really is Jamal or Aaron Gordon, and I think the choice is pretty obvious here. We're going to put him on Aaron Gordon because we're going to put Mike Conley on Jamal, and we're going to try and get Donovan Mitchell into an ideal matchup. My problem here for the Jazz, and the thing that concerns me overall in the bigger picture, is that I feel like the Nuggets now have a lot more firepower. If you go up and down the starting five matchup, let's just start with the bigs. I look at Jokic's game and I compare it to Rudy's, and I say, yeah, they're going to battle, but Jokic is more than capable of putting up 30 to 35 points on Rudy Gobert. That's really just not in question. If you watch their games and understand who Jokic is, he's more than capable of doing that. Okay, so I'm going to give the nod to Jokic in that matchup. I look at the Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell matchup, and I think that is dead even. I think Jamal Murray is underrated. I think last year we saw that they essentially just canceled each other out. So if they cancel each other out, the Nuggets are winning the Jokic matchup. The Nuggets are up by 1 right now. I then move to Aaron Gordon and Royce O'Neal because I do think that will be the matchup. I don't think that Aaron Gordon's going to dominate Royce O'Neal, but I do think he's going to give you 15 or 20. I don't think he's going to give you like 30 or 40 or anything crazy, but I think he's going to give you 15 or 20, and I definitely think he's going to give you at least 10 boards, for sure. So I give the edge to Aaron Gordon in that one. And then Michael Porter's the X factor. Really, of the series, he's the X factor because it's going to be him and Bogdanovich. Who's going to shoot the ball better? Who's going to do more for their team? So that's why I'm concerned, because I feel like the Nuggets have the advantage in the matchups, but that's just based on what happened in the bubble last year.
You know what's funny about listening to you talk? One, I get misty as your dad because you're finally starting to make intelligent points.
That's quite enough. We get it.
Did you just call me stupid?
Anyway, my point is,
after my traumatizing experience on the show yesterday, I thought I was going to get a softball today.
Don't bring that up. Don't. Because do you know, not to digress too much, but do you know how many, wow, you're a really shitty father. Do you know how many of those I got yesterday? Do you know how many people are like, wow, you try to embarrass your son. You're a jerk. Right? Like, it's unfair that you lost your mind over me. It's not funny. It's unfair you lost your mind over me bringing that up when we had brought that up on the radio in Phoenix and we had a great laugh about it.
I was not prepared to talk about that yesterday.
Okay, that's fine. Good morning to you, Eric and Raleigh. He says, top of the morning. Gabe Ledley, appreciate you. He says, appreciate you. My guys, no. We appreciate you. Hardcore ran Mel 15 said Utah needs a legit power forward that can play together with Rudy. Absolutely,
100% agree.
Oh my God,
and that's why I say yesterday on the show, as much as we joke about the show yesterday, that is one of the things that I feel like got brought up in the comments a lot. One of the things we talked about, because that is like we talked about it from two different angles actually. Number one, we talked about the fact that the Jazz really need to give Donovan a wingman because Rudy is a great player, but he is not a wingman that will take you to the next level. In terms of offense, like I look back to, you look back to the Kobe and Shaq era, right? And you think about that dynamic, and the difference between those two and Donovan and Rudy is really not that much, other than the fact that Shaq was one of the most dominant big men the league has ever seen. Like, put fear into the defense. that factor is missing with Rudy. And so to the guy's point, I don't know his name or whatever, but to the commenter's point, yeah, the Jazz could really use a LaMarcus Aldridge. They could really use a guy who's a power forward, who can make the elbow jumper, who can do things, and they just don't have it.
I think the days of two Hall of Famers tied together that are at the top of their game. If you think about Kobe and Shaq, and let me tell you what I used to do. I happened to cover the Lakers during the Kobe and Shaq days. They were really good. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not being the master of the obvious here. They were really good.
How much of the time when they were teammates, like, did they hate each other? Because at the end, they like hated each other and the divorce and all that. But
after the first championship, there was a fight for the spotlight, and I mean, Kobe wouldn't get dressed in the same locker room. He wanted his own post-game, media skirmish. He wanted, Kobe was a child, and Kobe admitted this before his death, by the way, that maturity-wise, he just wasn't ready for that. Mm-hmm. So there was legitimate heat there. They could not coexist, and Kobe was younger, and Kobe, I think, was probably much more of he was much more of a dynamic player.
Yeah. Shaq
was I still to this day believe Shaq is the most dominant player that's ever stepped foot on a basketball court. But Kobe could do it more in more diverse ways.
More flashy.
Yeah.
More marketable.
He could shoot it. He could dunk it. He could dribble it. He could defend it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
not just
everything.
bulldozing you.
Yeah, he was everything. So those two could not coexist anymore. But anyway, my point is, I think Donovan Mitchell's a great player, but it too often, as I say every day on this show about the Jazz, and too hardcore ran Mel 15 stud point.
Who the f*** is that guy?
Love you, buddy. The point is, they need a dominant power forward to make a triple there.
Yeah.
Because Rudy, and we had a huge conversation. Follow the comments on YouTube all day long. There was a huge conversation about that Rudy's an offensive force because this team shoots so many threes.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the way that Rudy Gobert impacts a game, it is offensive and defensive rebounding. It's put back dunks. It's his ability occasionally to create space and finish with a one bounce explosion. I've finished that way all the time. Anyway, the point is, all I'm saying is,
what are you talking about, man?
It's Friday. What do you want from me? All I'm saying is I agree with that point a lot. Eric and Raleigh says, Jake was a reflection of you, Tim. He's getting away from your shadow now. Well, thank you. He's noticed I've lost weight, so my shadow's smaller.
Yeah.
So you're stepping away from
What a great comment.
I mean, Eric and Raleigh, that's my
awesome
guy.
Comment,
Wilt Chamberlain, question mark. Oh, Shaq was more dominant than Wilt Chamberlain. No,
so here's the thing with that, though.
Wait. I never saw Wilt play, but talking to Jerry West.
Yeah.
Jerry West and I have had this exact conversation, not to name drop, but Jerry West and I have had this exact conversation. And I think Shaq was more dominant.
What did Jerry say?
That Shaq was just a bigger, more brutal force in a time where bodies were bigger. Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature in his time. Wilt Chamberlain was a large black man playing against largely white opponents. Mm-hmm. And so naturally, and I think this matters too, this is probably going way too deep, but in that era of NBA, it was largely a white NBA.
Right.
And so Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature because of his size, but he was intimidating. In the 60s and 70s, you look at Kareem, you look at Wilt, they were large black men, and people, I think there was an intimidation factor just based on their size and skin color.
Yeah.
It was a different era in the NBA. I look at Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq you were going to get dunked on.
Yeah.
That was going to happen.
Yep.
I think if you want to talk about when he was playing, sure, Wilt was a dominant player when he was playing. I don't think he ever dominated the NBA. I saw guys refuse to guard Shaquille O'Neal out of fear.
Yeah.
So, and I think the single best play I've ever seen with my own two eyes in person, I was under the basket when Shaq and Kobe threw that alley-oop.
Yeah, against Portland.
Standing on the floor. I mean, it was just, the building shook.
Yeah.
It was that kind of moment. Anyway, Point is, the Jazz have to find a running mate for Donovan Mitchell. And they didn't do that yesterday. I look at the Lakers while we're talking Shaq and Kobe. I think the Lakers are one of the biggest losers at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
They were unable to get Kyle Lowry out of Toronto. And when you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James injured, you needed to go and get Kyle Lowry. Now, the Clipper deal is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lou Williams to Atlanta for Rajon Rondo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it.
Okay, here's all this move is, in my opinion. I think it's very simple. The Clippers understand that since Chris Paul's departure, they haven't really had a point guard. They haven't had a guy who can run the offense. General. They haven't had a floor general. And I think that is the epitome of what Rajon Rondo has always been in his career, but even in the later stages of his career. He's not a guy who's going to come out and give you 30 and like do anything insane. But what he is going to do is he's going to make it so that your offense has two all-stars and two guys who can score whenever they want to. And those guys, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, don't have to bring the ball up anymore, which is what they do too often. Reggie Jackson has not been the point guard that they needed, and I think they wanted him to be that. He's not that guy. So what's going to happen is Rajon's going to start in this offense. He's going to bring the ball up, and he's going to get the offense going. And what that does, I can't stress the importance of this. The Suns went through it with Devin Booker until they got Chris Paul. You know, many teams go through it. But the Clippers right now are a team, A, that is soft. We talk about it all the time when we talk about the Clippers. But B, you can't have your superstar guys in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard bringing the ball up. That just can't happen if you're going to win a championship.
Yeah, I think the wear and tear that puts on guys is significant. But again, the Clippers win last night without Kawhi Leonard playing on rest. You know, Marcus Morris didn't play on a rest night.
There's a lot of rest nights happening this year because of the offseason.
There is, and I think it's necessary, and I understand it. But if I'm the Clippers in this situation, did Rajon Rondo make me that much better? I don't think he did. I think your point about getting PG off the ball, that's really well thought. I think that's really important. But when I look at the LA Clippers and I look at how they match up, it's a mental toughness issue. We were asked about this on Twitter yesterday. Are the Jazz struggling with being a mentally soft team?
Would we call the Jazz a mentally soft team, just generally speaking?
No, I would not. I would call, and this is significant, this is a really important conversation, I would call the front office of the Utah Jazz mentally soft. And it's frustrating. They have new ownership. I don't know how many people realize this. The Miller family, Gail Miller, wife of the late Larry H. Miller, the business tycoon, sold the team this year. And you brought in a local billionaire tech guy, everything you want in an owner of a professional sports franchise in Utah. And you would have hoped that there would have been a philosophical change. And you would have hoped that the Jazz brass would have said, you know, we're really close to winning the Western Conference. Because you can't think about winning an NBA championship because you have to win the West before you get to the finals.
Yeah.
The Utah Jazz, for the first time in a generation, are that close to winning the Western Conference. Here we are at the trade deadline. We've got, Bogey struggling mightily.
Bojan.
The team, easy Boyan. The team, don't start. The team is struggling to win the way that they had won earlier in the season, mainly because Boyan is not hitting the three at the level he once was.
Bojan.
And I think the issue is they didn't have a killer instinct at the trade deadline. And for me, that's what disappointed me about the Jazz. I think the Lakers tried to get Kyle Lowry. I think they tried desperately. They couldn't make that happen.
Hello, we are not available now. Please leave your name and phone number after the beep.
And here's my question. Did Masai Ujiri, the general manager of the Toronto Raptors, make a mistake keeping Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, I do think he did. I do.
Kyle's their franchise player. In the history of that franchise, there's never been somebody who spent more than Kyle Lowry. I understand why they wanted to move him. I even understand why Kyle Lowry wanted to be moved.
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake to hang on to him. When the Sixers, the Heat, the Clippers, and the Lakers all wanted him, are you telling me you couldn't get a package that you valued enough for Kyle Lowry?
They wanted too much. That's the problem.
They may have overvalued him.
Picks.
Absolutely.
They wanted a player.
Absolutely.
They wanted a lot.
Yeah. I think I look at who the losers were. Yes, I mean very clearly the Houston Rockets are a rudderless ship that's stuck in the canal.
I think that somehow though that they understand that.
Bro,
I think
nothing. No, I just made. I can't think of the name of the canal off the top of my head.
The Suez Canal.
No, is it the Suez Canal?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I just made a Suez Canal reference, and you just rolled right over it. Anyway, my point is, beyond being incredibly intelligent and good-looking, I can make Suez Canal jokes.
Right.
My point is, the Houston Rockets are very clearly the worst team in the NBA and had the worst day yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the Jazz, the Lakers, and the Clippers are going to look back on March 25th, the NBA trade deadline, and they're going to say, boy, did we miss an opportunity. And I think they're going to regret that because I not to belabor the point, I think absolutely the Denver Nuggets won the day. And the Lakers are now they are now married to Talon Horton Tucker because they wouldn't give him up to get Kyle Lowry.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't.
Why would you not give up? A lot of people think it was Horton Tucker and Kyle Kuzma.
Because Horton Tucker has ability that clearly shows that he can be a 25 to 30 points a night guy.
But you're the Lakers.
Right.
You're the Lakers. You're really hitching your wagon to a second-year guy with 3 names? That's not who the Lakers are. I'm not sure 3 names matters. But my point is...
The problem is that, dude, are you seriously telling me that the issue is that the Los Angeles Lakers do not want to give up? Kyle Kuzma is not the issue here. They don't want to give up Horton Tucker because he is their future. He is a guy that they're going to keep and they're going to develop, and he will start for them.
Is he really?
Yes, he will. I don't know how you're not as high on him as I am.
I'm not. It's not that I'm not high on Horton Tucker.
Right.
What I look at is you're the LA Lakers. You're going to pay the luxury tax every year. You're going to go and make trades and sign free agents.
Right.
To make sure that you compete every single year.
But is Kyle Lowry really that guy, though?
This year?
Yeah.
This year right now?
I feel like it's borderline value-wise.
But if you're the Lakers, you are not playing for the future. You don't have to worry about, and again, not to be a dick and compare him to the Jazz, but the Jazz have to worry about Gordon Hayward going on restricted free agent visits. The LA Lakers don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Right? They don't.
Yeah.
It's LA. It's the Lakers. It is Dwight Howard almost breaking down in tears getting a championship ring yesterday night.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what we're talking about. And when you can get guys like Danny Green to come and be the cherry on top of the championship sundae.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about guys with 3 names that are second-year players.
But
you're like, well, in 5 years, this guy could be a superstar.
But here's what you're missing. The value of Kyle Lowry right now to their roster is not high enough to get rid of that. Well, but can you literally say that Kyle Lowry is better than Schroeder is for them when they're healthy?
No, but I'm not telling you that you would have had to give up Dennis Schroeder.
Right, no, but my point is if you have Schroeder already, you got a guy that can do what you need him to do. Why are you going to give up your future to get an aging veteran who's going to come in and be a cherry on top guy?
Because his cojones are the size of bowling balls. Yeah. He's been there. He's done that. He's hit shots. He is one of the most frustrating players to go against. Yeah. There's all kinds of value in that. And my point is, you know what worries me the most? If you're a Laker fan, the thing that should really stand out to you is why didn't they make the Kyle Lowry trade? Did they not make the Kyle Lowry trade because Anthony Davis ain't coming back?
I think that's part of it, yeah.
Is that and I think that's a big conversation. I don't think there's
anything wrong with that, though, right? Like, I don't think that it's an issue for the Lakers to say, we won the title last year. We had a really short offseason. This year, LeBron's got an injury. LeBron wants to play in the Olympics. LeBron wants to do all this stuff. Is this the year? Are we really going to push the issue this year when we could wait and we could make the postseason, scrape into the playoffs,
Yeah.
play a series in the postseason, and give LeBron the rest that he needs. Give Anthony Davis the rest that he needs. Because either way, think about it this way. Can we really say that if the Lakers, without Anthony Davis, go up against Brooklyn, that they're going to win the finals? I don't think anybody would say that, dude.
But it's a philosophical thing. You're not wrong. Certainly, we disagree on this.
I
but
just think that you've
you're
already won.
But you haven't, because I think there's expectations. And this is why I say, if you're the Lakers, the expectation should be we're going to win back-to-back championships.
That was the expectation before Anthony Davis almost popped his Achilles.
Magic Johnson and the Showtime Lakers,
Right.
back-to-back three-peat, great team. Kobe and Shaq, back-to-back three-peat, great team. They're waiting for that next generation. And you have LeBron and AD. If you add LeBron, AD, and Kyle Lowry, it's over. My point is, I think the injury to AD is more significant. And I look at what Reggie on
Reggie.
How about Reggie?
Hey, look
Jackson?
here, man.
Yeah, hey, Reggie. It's still one of the great movies ever. Anyway, point is, Reggie makes a really good point.
Yeah.
You're the Lakers. You don't worry about second-year players. You worry about championships.
Well,
And I think that's very true. But I think to your point,
yeah.
maybe you're not. Maybe you don't have the
It's not
horses
your
to win
year.
the race.
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth the miles on LeBron's legs and on the franchise to do that. I mean, what are we going to be saying? The only reason that the second year player thing is a criticism right now is because he's not getting starters minutes. You don't know, if he could give you 25 or 30 a night. You don't know if you can't right now. You can't say, okay, well, we're not going to make this trade because we know that Horton Tucker can do this for us.
By the way, the Jazz did make a deal. They got Matt Thomas for a second.
Who the f*** is that guy?
Second-round pick, sharpshooter. The guy can absolutely shoot.
Wait, did the Jazz need more three-point shooting?
They can never have enough, according to Quinn Snyder.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
I think you're in a situation with the Utah Jazz where you can never have enough, but let's be honest. I don't think that Matt Thomas ever even impacts this lineup. I don't think this – I just don't. I think Sarah Todd from the Deseret News, who, by the way, is one of the most underrated NBA writers in the league at this point. Sarah's fantastic. You should read her stuff. NBA Sarah. I agree. I don't think he ever – she wrote a great piece on why. I don't think he ever impacts this rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, if he is, then Ersan Ilyasova is not playing. And and you're going to wind up cutting him loose.
Here's the point. That's great they made that move. They didn't really make a move. They didn't really do anything that's like going to be season defining or game changing or anything like that. I mean, you're going to run out the same team. You're going to see the only way that Thomas or Ersan sees time is in a reserve role when Quinn is altering the rotation of the reserve players. So, I could see a situation where, if over the last 20 or 30 games here, Matt Thomas shows that he can be a reliable shooter with the Jazz, because he has shown to be a reliable shooter, particularly off the dribble. He can really knock it down. He's a guy that can run around, get the shot. He's a very J.J. Redick-esque kind of player. So if he can show an ability to come off the screen and hit a big shot, okay, he's got value. But he's not a player that's going to be in your starting five every night. That's going to make you even with what the Nuggets did with Aaron Gordon. Yeah,
some of the other deals I think we got to talk about. The Orlando Magic tearing this thing down. Obviously, we've talked about the Aaron Gordon trade. The Vucevic trade to Chicago, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I think it is. The Chicago Bulls, as we've talked about for a month now, because I love the Bulls and I hate the Bulls. This is a trade I really like.
Yeah.
I think that deal to get Vucevic absolutely gives them a running mate. I think Al-Farouq Amino is a nice little throw-in. I was surprised the Bulls gave up on Wendell Carter Jr. so quickly. But I think Vucevic is a huge uptick.
Yeah.
They have a lot of Euro in their front office, and I think Vucevic fits into their vision for this team. I think Jazz fans were frustrated Otto Porter Jr. went to Orlando instead of going to Utah. But hey, it is what it is. I think this is a great deal. The Bulls aren't going to compete for a championship this season, but I think what this does is this sets them up to placate Zach LaVine for another year.
Yeah.
And I think this builds going forward. Interesting, Evan Fournier to the Celtics. Okay. I mean,
The
Jeff
Celtics,
Teague, two
dude-
second-round picks is nothing to give up for Fournier.
Bro, if we're gonna say that the Rockets are a rudderless ship, the Celtics are right there with them. I mean, the Celtics don't have direction right now. They don't have. I love me some Jason Tatum, right? I love the guy. I love what he does. He's a killer. He's not a franchise level player like LeBron
Not yet.
or
Not
any
yet.
of those guys. But how long is not yet? How long does he get to be not yet? I mean, the guy has been. What has he been? I'd have to look it up. But he's pushing 5 years in the league at this point. I mean,
But I think he also doesn't have a whole lot of help. Jaylen Brown is having a breakout season. And I think when you add a guy like Fournier that gives you 20 points a night, he shoots 40% from three.
yeah.
I mean, this is a good move for them. And they didn't have to give up Marcus Smart, who is a huge part of their grit. I think you give up Jeff Teague and 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, and they
I'll
added
take
Mo
that
Wagner.
all day.
They added Mo Wagner too,
Yeah,
which
who
is
cares?
it's.
Is that a big move to you?
It's not a big move, but I think they all it all fits together. My point just is the Celtics should be a lot better than they are. The league needs
Yes.
them to be a better team.
I would
it's
agree.
disappointing that they consistently lose games they shouldn't lose.
And then there is the Houston Rockets. I have no idea, bro. Victor Oladipo for Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, and a pick swap.
Neat.
That's all you got for Victor Oladipo.
I mean, yeah.
Kelly Olynyk? Are you serious? And Avery Bradley, who didn't want to play basketball 2 years ago? I mean,
And some picks.
what was this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was
I
I think it was a money saving move. That's what I think it was.
listen. I get that.
And I think that Victor Oladipo was a malcontent in their organization.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with the Rockets. I don't get it. They should be way better than they are. I look at Silas. Maybe he's just not the right head coach. I have no idea. John Wall and Oladipo together should have been very good.
Yeah.
And it is not. You lose 20 in a row for a reason.
Yeah.
And part of that's coaching. I think you got to look at that. I also think the Norman Powell deal,
Big deal.
giving up Gary Trent Jr. is nothing to shake a stick at.
Yeah, but I'd rather have Powell. He's playoff proven. He knows how to win. He's not on the level like Kyle Lowry is, let's say, but he's a guy that you want on the floor in the big moment.
You put Norman Powell next to Dame and next to 3J McCallum. I mean, and Portland got better.
They did.
Portland got better, and to give up Gary Trent Jr. I think was not easy to do. JJ Redick, another Jazz target, doesn't get bought out. He gets traded to Dallas.
Yeah.
I think that's a really significant move. Dallas, I'm telling you, mark my words right now, Dallas is going to be a problem. I do not want to see them in the playoffs.
I like that they're adding to the roster. I was never a big proponent of trading Kristaps Porzingis. I think that he's just finally starting to come
I agree
around.
with that.
I think that they're
Absolutely.
coming together now. And this whole Jazz conversation around JJ Redick to me was idiotic from the beginning because JJ Redick is not a guy that plays starters minutes at this point. JJ Redick is a guy that's going to give you 15 to 20 depending on the game and where you are and how you use him.
Yep.
And he's going to come in and give you pop offense. But I'm telling you guys again, I want Jazz fans to remember we talked about this today when we're in the Western Conference Finals, let's say, against the Nuggets. The Jazz not adding somebody who can get a bucket on their own besides Donovan Mitchell will be the reason they do not go to the NBA Finals this year. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think that's interesting. I think it is. I think you're right about that. Barry makes a really good point and asks a really good question. Who had the bigger swing and miss yesterday on Kyle Lowry?
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers or the Sixers?
The Sixers.
For sure.
Yeah. Because
the Sixers wind up with, good old George Hale, who's been on every team and seems to never retire.
Yeah.
The Sixers thought they had Kyle Lowry.
And I think everybody thought they had Kyle Lowry.
I think they did too.
And I don't know, and we'll probably never know, but I don't know if it was that, the Sixers decided not to pull the trigger on that deal, or if Toronto wanted, just a touch more, or what. But You go from a team in the Sixers who has Ben Simmons running point to Kyle Lowry running point and having a lot more flexibility. Just the same way that, Rondo to the Clippers does it for them, that's what Kyle Lowry would have done. And I think that if you're the Raptors, you had a real hard time trading him in the same, division, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. And no, Barry also wants to know if Philly now is on Brooklyn's level because he doesn't think so.
No.
I think George Hill is really solid. They're not the Brooklyn Nets.
No.
And I think what you saw here in Salt Lake the other night, where the Nets essentially laughed off that loss, I think they're playing in a bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And I think they know that they're the best team in the East by a lot.
I think they think they're the best team in the league, which I think it's hard to dispute.
Well, I think it is. Arguably they are. I mean, you usually will find teams that have the ability to play their best basketball in the biggest moments. That's my question about the Utah Jazz. Because when the Utah Jazz are playing their best basketball, they're the best team in the NBA. And I honestly think it's not close in the West. When the Utah Jazz, when everybody plays their best basketball, the Utah Jazz are the best team in the West. Now, does Aaron Gordon inch the Nuggets up higher? If their best basketball just went up a notch, now the Denver Nuggets are the best team. The problem is we haven't seen the Jazz best basketball in the second half.
No.
Since that last road trip before the All-Star break, the Jazz best basketball went there and died.
Yep.
And that's my biggest question. Can the Jazz get back to that? Because when they do, when Bojan's shooting the ball well, they're the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
You can't. But what do you always say about the three ball? You can't live and die with it.
You're not going to shoot 40% from three in the postseason. You may do it one game here, one game there, but you're not going to win a championship doing that.